Have you been having issues getting your first kills in the Corrupted Gauntlet? Have you found that the big bad red wolf is huffing and puffing and blowing you back to Lumbridge every single time? Do you just want to get more consistent kills? Well, I've done my time in the red prison, but I'm going back just one more time to show you some tips and tricks that I've learned about getting consistent kills against the Hunliff. First off, this guide assumes you already have the basics of the gauntlet down. You should already understand how to farm resources, find demi-bosses, prep food, and make armor. If you don't, there's another video on my channel, which I will link in the description below, that has all of this information for you. For now, we'll be focusing on 3 core areas to make sure you're ready to kill the Hunliff: the pre-gauntlet run, the prep phase, and the kill itself. Before heading into the gauntlet, you should have these minimum stats to be ready for the Hunliff. At least 85 or higher in your combat stats, including attack, defense, strength, range, magic, and hit points. And 77 prayer is a huge bonus for rigor, augury, and piety. Of course, higher stats will be massively beneficial for you, and having stats even in the low 90s will make a noticeable difference in the time and difficulty of the Hunliff fight. Make sure you mark the Hunliff with the NPC Indicators plugin from RuneLite so that you can see where he is standing. You can do this by holding down Shift and right-clicking to reveal the tag option. This helps to ensure that you avoid walking under him as his trample attacks hit consistent 40s. Finally, make sure that you have your true tile indicator on in the Tile Indicators plugin. It's extremely important to understand where your player is from the server's perspective, otherwise the tornadoes will continually chip away at your character for 18 to 20 damage each time they come close to you. Now that you have your pre-gauntlet work out of the way, let's talk about what you can do in the prep phase to save yourself some time and ultimately make the kills easier and more consistent. The first thing you should be doing if you are struggling with the gauntlet is to focus on making tier 2 armor and tier 3 weapons. This is literally the biggest tip that I can give for consistent completions. I've done over 650 Corrupted Gauntlet KC, and probably 600 of those KC were done with tier 2 armor. Is it slower to craft? Yes. You won't be setting any speedrun records crafting tier 2, but you will substantially reduce the damage you take from the Hunliff's auto attacks, and it provides a nice cushion for mistakes. I always say, stressful prep, chill fight. If you are having trouble with the time it takes while prepping the tier 2 armor, you should be utilizing the 2 sweep method, where you make one run in a half circle around the starting room and a second run to cover the outer ring of the gauntlet, looking for demi-bosses and final materials. After your run, drop only 3 materials in front of the crafting bowl anymore, and you will waste time picking up the materials that you've already obtained. It sounds obvious, but if you have enough crystal shards and resources after your first sweep to craft a tier 2 weapon, make your crystal dust, and make potion bottles, then you shouldn't drop any of your resources and instead just jump right into the tier 1 armor. This helps to save inventory space even if you can't craft the full set right from the get-go. You should be using any type of tick manipulation methods if you can. Every tick saved adds up. For example, mixing your potions while fishing, killing enemies while harvesting resources, and harvesting resources while hitting demi-bosses. In this clip, you can see me mixing my potions and clicking on the fishing spot to instantly catch a fish. This saves me several ticks. I'm not a huge fan of tick manipulation methods because they're very sweaty, but when it comes to the Corrupted Gauntlet, it's really, really important to save every tick you can. So I'm a huge advocate for the tick manipulation methods from within the Corrupted Gauntlet itself. So now we're going to cover some crucial tips for actually securing the kill once you're done with the prep. The first tip is to wait until the Hunliff is in the corner of the room. Once you enter, the Hunliff does not move, and having him in the corner gives you a lot more room to dodge through tornadoes, especially in the third phase with the complex tile patterns. The second tip is that there is a Gauntlet helper app at thegauntletcounter.herokuapp.com. I've used this throughout my 650 kills, and some players may argue that the tool is more of a crutch, but I really think it helps to alleviate the prayer switching burden that a lot of players find themselves in. The Hunliff throws a lot of attacks at you through auto attacks, tornadoes, tile patterns, changing protection prayers, etc. And to have a tool that helps with at least one of those issues is honestly a game changer. It's really simple. After you see the hit splat for the Hunliff's first attack, simply click the start button, and you should be in sync with the Hunliff's attacks for the remainder of the fight, provided you don't get trampled. If you get trampled, it delays one of the Hunliff's auto attacks, and so you'll be switching protection prayers too quickly and taking an occasional hit. Luckily, there is a button for when you get trampled to resync the attacks with the audio that you're hearing. My best advice is to not get trampled, of course, because dealing with resyncing mid-fight is kind of how you get KO'd in the Corrupted Gauntlet. Just one more thing to handle, and then the tool becomes more of a burden than a help. Alternatively, you can also turn it off mid-fight and wait till the Hunliff attacks again with range. On his first range attack, turn it back on and it'll actually be resynced. This works because the Hunliff always attacks on a 4-hit cycle before switching attack styles. I used the gauntlet counter when I started, I still use it, and for any future gauntlet kills, I'll continue to use it. No shame here. If it helps you, use it. Let me know your thoughts about the gauntlet counter down in the comments. My next tip involves the tornadoes. I found that more often than not, the tornadoes were the attacks that actually ended up killing me. You can actually move through the tornadoes if you get into a tight spot. It works the same way as Olm's lightning if you're familiar with that. Tornadoes move at 1 tile per game tick, the same as your character walking. You can time it so that when your character runs, it skips the tile that the tornado is actively moving towards. This means that technically you can wooks walk the tornadoes, but I wouldn't advise it because one misclick is an almost instant death with the 4 tornadoes active in the 3rd phase of the fight. It's important to keep in mind that you can't walk through all tornado patterns while avoiding damage. If 2 tornadoes are actually on adjacent tiles to one another, and moving at the same speed, if you try to walk through it, then the second tornado will actually always hit you because the tile that you actually land on when you run and move 2 tiles is going to be that tile that the second tornado is actually moving towards. It's kind of confusing, but nevertheless, it's still an effective strategy if you're in a tight spot or if the tornadoes are stacked. Another tip is to keep your priorities in order while fighting the Hunliff. The Hunliff is actively trying to overload you with information, shift your priorities, and cause you to spam, click, and panic. Take a deep breath, remain calm, and follow this list. Keep moving while tornadoes are out. This is your #1 goal. If the tornadoes catch you, you're in for some serious pain. Second, keep your correct prayer up. Self-explanatory, but if you keep your correct prayer up, the Hunliff can actually only max a 10 on you in your tier 2 armor. The third tip is eat while moving. The best time to eat is actually while you're moving away from the tornadoes. This not only maximizes your DPS, but it also ensures that you stay out in front or out of reach from the tornadoes themselves. You should be keeping high health. Technically, this is a bad tip for pro gauntlet runners because eating delays your next attack, and thus you end up taking more damage and dealing less damage in the long run. However, if you are struggling with completions, which you probably are if you're watching this video, then keeping your health high is paramount. It's always worth it to eat more food and live than die with food. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to squeeze out an extra bit of DPS only to get knocked out by a single tornado or a bad tile with a full inventory of food. Nothing hurts worse than losing 15 minutes, I'm telling you. Finally, your last priority should be doing DPS. This is usually the first priority for most bosses in RuneScape, which is why the Corrupted Gauntlet is so difficult. However, I'm putting it last on the list because you do 0 DPS if you're dead. Stay alive, keep your health high, and stay calm under pressure. DPS is gonna be secondary. My last tip is probably the most important, using F keys. F keys are borderline essential when doing the gauntlet. If you aren't using them by now, then the gauntlet is the perfect place to learn. Click the settings icon and select the All Settings button. From there, select the Controls tab and scroll down to the bottom. You'll have an option to assign your inventory and prayer to specific F keys on your keyboard. I find that the F keys to be a bit of a stretch for my fingers, so I like to use the RuneLite key remapping plugin to remap the F2 and F3 for inventory and prayer respectively, F keys to the Q and E keys on my keyboard. My hand rests naturally on the ASDW keys, and the Q and E are only a short tap away to switch between my inventory and prayer. Well, those are all my tips for tackling the Hunliff. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. And remember that the Corrupted Gauntlet is one of the more challenging solo PvM encounters in old school RuneScape. You're gonna die a lot, but recognizing why you died and what went wrong is the first step to consistent completions. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it really helps my channel grow. Thank you.
Everybody is the fakest, I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant, I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit.